population. So can we, if that's what we're interested in, and we're going to go try to find this out, do you know how many Grossman students there are?
A lot.
Roughly 18,000. Do you have time to talk to 18,000 people? And if you do, you maybe want to reevaluate your life. I don't know. Or that's nice. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm jealous or worried about you. But a sample is a subgroup of the population we'll actually study. So an example in this case, here's the issue. If my sample was Grossmont students who play the flute, what will the answer to this question always be? If I only pick the people who play the flute, what percentage of Grossmont students play the flute does it look like to me then? 100%. So my sample can't be that specific. It does have to be a little, I can't just say 70 students. Because where are they coming from? So I can say something like 70 Grossmont students. Right? That would be a very specific example of a sample I could take. Is that a big sample? Do you think it's big enough? Do you think it's a big enough sample?
No.
It is. We don't understand that, but it is. It's fun. Gallup, real quick. There's a website I love a lot. It's called Gallup. They do a lot of studies, talk to a lot of people. Normally they try to represent all 350 million Americans using samples of 1,200. And people will often say, well, that's bullshit, and those people don't know statistics. So at the end of the semester, you'll understand that that's fine. Now, if they got a bigger sample, would they be even more sure about what they see? Yes. But they don't need a bigger sample to be relatively certain about what they see. All right. So that's really interesting. So for 20,000 students, 70 is actually not a bad sample if it's well selected. So I could say 70 Grossmont students, or any number really, but Why would you guys be a bad sample? Like if I used you guys as my sample, I'm not saying you're bad people, but why would you guys possibly be a bad sample?
We're not representative of what you're looking for.
So why would you not be representative?
We're all in the same class.
You're all in the same class.
We don't play the flute.
Huh? Oh, but that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Right? I want to find the percentage of Grossmont students who play the flute. So I don't want to only pick the people that play the flute because then it looks like 100% too. I'm like, whoa, holy shit, what's up with
Okay, I
Grossmont?
see what you mean.
So you're right. I need a sample that will be representative of the population. Why are you guys not representative of the population? It's basically partially what you said. You're all in this class. Yes, so we're getting closer to random.
We are on the same hours too.
Yes. Will every student take the class at 7 a.m.?
No.
Hell
Hell
no.
no.
Will every student have to take statistics?
No.
No. Will every student take me? No. Some of them know not to take me. I don't know. And you're all like, oh, I'm an asshole. We'll find out. I'm an honest asshole. No, you'll find out. I don't know. We'll all find out together. Depends on how I'm feeling this semester. You guys semi with me?
Yeah.
So there are several factors that have brought you together that could all possibly skew the results. You're not representative of the group I'm trying to talk about. So we will talk about how to pick a good sample. And that's why every time there's a discussion, anytime you see, so you guys, do you guys know newspapers still exist?
Yeah.
Where do you guys get your news from? I'm very curious about that. Where do you get news from? Or do you just kind of stumble across it?
Internet.
Huh?
Internet or
Internet.
podcasts actually.
Maybe CNN if it's on in the gym or something. Or MSNBC or Fox or whatever flavor you like. All right? No? Where else do you guys get news from? Anybody? I know Facebook's for older people. But any of you still on the Facebooks?
I am.
Getting the Russian propaganda news? That's always good. Yay, go us. All right. What was my point with that? I totally forgot. Anytime you see a study talked about, like they say 50% of the people do this or 11% of students do this, if they don't say anything about how many people they talk to, how did they pick their sample, you cannot accept it. You can't just go, oh, wow. You go, I don't know how to feel about that because I can't trust you. Right? And that's one thing I want you to come out of this class with is the ability to stop yourself when you hear something. Like, well, who did they talk to? How did they pick them? What kind of test did they use? How did they determine if it was significant or not? Right? We don't. So often people just go, 70% do that? Holy shit! And they talk to like 20 people, and they're all people the guy knew or something. It's like, no, stop. Right? Yes? Maybe? Okay. So we'll talk more about what makes a good sample in a bit, depending on how much time we got. All right. The next kind of thing here is, let's see if I can do this better. Get up there. Stay. All right. These next two go together. There's something called a parameter, and then there's something amazingly enough called a statistic. And these things are beautiful if you let them be. What is it I'm trying to figure out right now in this problem we have, this specific example? What I'm trying to figure out? The percentage of Grossmont students who play the flute, right? So I want to know the percentage of all Grossmont students, really, right? We took a sample, so we're going to try to use what we see in our sample to estimate something about the whole population. That's the hardest statistics. So the parameter, let me put the definition first, is a numerical description. Get in there. Of a population. Notice, population parameter. Why does that kick so much ass? Because a statistic is a numerical description of a sample. S. Look at that shit. So if I said 13% of all Grossmont students play the flute, did I just say a parameter or a statistic? Why is it a parameter? 13% of all Grossmont students play the flute. Why is that a parameter? Because what is it describing? All, which is a population. You guys, it's nothing more than that. Don't say a statistic because it's got a percentage. No, what is it describing? If I had said instead, 13% of the 70 Grossmont students we talked to play the flute, that would be a statistic because it's describing a sample. Yeah. Parameter, population. It's a good thing nobody's in the splash zone. Statistic, sample. You gotta love that shit. That don't happen often enough in mathematics. So here, 13% of all Grossmont students, I like it, play the flute, blah, 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 blah. And a statistic would be 13% of the 70 selected play the flute. See how they both say the same thing? They're just saying it about two different groups. Yes? In this case, it was a percentage. In general, they can normally be a percentage or an average or some other stuff we'll learn later. But right now we know the average and we know the percentage. Those are two big things that a parameter and as a statistic could be. So population and sample are groups of things. Parameter statistic is a numerical description of those things. Okay. Oh, let's see. What was the other thing up here, Jeff? I always forget. Oh. Variable and data. Last two things. This is kind of nifty. Variable, you're all very familiar with that word. In statistics, the variable is related to the question, which makes sense. What is it about a variable in algebra? Why is it called a variable?
Varies.
Yeah, the values vary, right? So if I see x in an equation, what could it be? Anything, unless it's, Anyway, sure, we won't get on, but it can have basically any value it wants to, right? So in statistics, the variable is related to the question. Why does that make complete sense? Because a question I ask somebody could have several different answers. So it's exactly the same thing. So in this study, what will I ask people in my sample? What will I be asking them? Do you play the flute? So the variable, we put in blue, the variable in this case is if someone plays the flute. Or you can say, does someone play the flute or something, right? The variable is related to the question I ask. And then the data would be a collection of all of the answers I get. Isn't that beautiful? So I have groups I want to talk about, I have things I want to say about them, and I have ways of getting the data to analyze. Right? That's basically what that is. What do I want to write up there? So some examples here would be yes, no. I love it. Right? So this would just be the answers to the question from the variable. Okay, maybe. Isn't that nice? It kind of flows. And most of these words you've heard. What's up there? You guys all right? You can't read my poor little writing? Yeah. So data says the answers to the variable question. Yeah, sorry. I really crapped out there at the end. Okay, maybe. All right, I think maybe the last thing for today, because we're coming up against the hard stop. Do they give me, I guess this is my, I got an eraser here. I got another one. Holy shit. All right. So last thing, let's talk a little bit about the data. Let's see how much I can squeeze in here. Not too much. I'll probably stop right after this. So there's two main types. There's quantitative and qualitative. What's the root word of quantitative? That's crazy. And what's the root word of qualitative? Quality. I love it. So basically, quantitative is truly numerical. Why do I say it like that? Somebody's jersey number is not a true number. It's a name, right? Are you in that?
Interpreter, sign language?
For the next class? We're almost done.
Okay.
You mean, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. All right. So quantitative would be truly numerical things, like temperature, any kind of measurements, right? But zip code, would a zip code be quantitative? No. It's not a number. It's just a name for an area.
Yeah.
All right, so this is truly numerical data. Yeah. Truly numerical. And then qualitative would be categorical, just names. Okay, and then I think next time we'll pick up with further subdividing these two, just because we're crazy. So we basically made it definitely section 1.1. I'm not sure if we're not done with 1.2 for sure. 1.2's got the quantitative and qualitative. It's got a lot more stuff. So at least start trying out 1.1 homework. If not, try to get ahead a little bit. And then see you on Wednesday. Anybody else who wants to come up and talk to me about weird situations or something, feel free. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Wednesday, and we'll have a little field trip on Wednesday. So you see some key places on campus. Okay.